Hey MMS! So today we're going to be learning Chapter 1, Lesson 6, Equivalent Ratios. Okay, you see that title at the top? And please be putting this into your table of contents. We want to make sure that we know where each lesson is and that we have it organized. Today I broke up my notes into a questions column and a notes column. I broke it up into the questions instead of main ideas column because over here we have a bunch of questions that we will be answering. And I already wrote them down to save us some time, but I'm going to zoom in, and you could pause it right now to try to write some of this down before we begin. So I'm going to zoom in just so you get a clear shot of what it says in case you can't see. Okay. So, we're going to be learning two different strategies today to understand and learn how to find equivalent ratios. Okay, so we're given different word problems, and in those different word problems, we're given two different ratios, and we need to determine if they are equivalent ratios. So the first thing we're going to do is use a strategy called the unit rate strategy. So we learned previously how to find unit rates. Today we're going to learn how to use that to find equivalent ratios. Okay, so once again, this is the unit rate strategy. We're going to change our rates, the rates that they give us, okay, into unit rates. And we're going to determine if they are the same. All right, so are 3 t-shirts for $21 and 5 t-shirts for $35 equivalent? Okay, so we have to determine that. All right, so first rate I'm going to write down is the first one, 3 t-shirts for $21. You could write that with 3 t-shirts as the numerator and $21 as the denominator, or vice versa. You could write $21 as the numerator and 3 t-shirts as the denominator, as long as you do the same thing for the second ratio. Okay, but I want to know, once I get my unit rate, I want to know how much money it is per t-shirt. So I'm going to put the amount in the numerator. So how much money in the numerator spot. Okay, so $21, 3 t-shirts for $21. So there's my $21, and I'm going to put 3 TS. TS stands for t-shirts. Okay. Now I'm going to find the unit rate of this. Remember, when we're finding the unit rate, we are dividing the bottom and the top by the denominator. Okay, so our denominator is 3, so I'm going to divide bottom and top by 3. And 21 divided by 3, again, you can do this in your head, or you can use a calculator. Okay, in this chapter, we can use calculators. 21 divided by 3 is $7. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. So 1 t-shirt. Okay, so now we have our unit rate. We know that $21 for 3 t-shirts is the same as $7 for 1 t-shirt. Okay, so for 1 t-shirt you pay $7. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but with the other rate that we have. And I'm just going to highlight some of this so we kind of keep our work organized. So Now I'm going to write the next rate, and I highlighted this in pink. So 5 t-shirts for $35. We're going to compare the unit rates. So that rate would be $35 for every 5 t-shirts. Okay? So to find my unit rate, I'm going to divide by the denominator. My denominator is 5, so I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 5. So 35 divided by 5 is 7. And 5 divided by 5 is 1. Okay? Okay, so I've highlighted this rate so that we know it goes with this rate up here. So we're understanding what the words are telling us, putting words into the proper form it needs to be. The pink rate goes with this one over here. And then what I'm going to be comparing is what's going to be highlighted in orange. Okay, so I see that my unit rates over here looks like they're both $7 for one t-shirt, $7 for one t-shirt. So I know that I have an equivalent ratio. Okay, they're both $7 for one t-shirt. So I'm going to say, yes, these are equivalent ratios. So I just compared those two ratios. If a problem is asking you to compare it, that's all you do. Look at both of them, okay? We got them into the unit rates and we compared. Are they the same? Yes, they are. So I'm going to say, yes, equivalent. All right. Let's do one more example using this strategy. So we have 36 flowers in 3 vases and 60 flowers in 6 vases. Okay, so we have to determine if that is equivalent. So first let's write our first rate. Okay, and for my first rate, I'm going to write 36 flowers over 3 vases. And again, I want to get my unit rate. That's the strategy that I'm using. I'm changing it into my unit rate and determining if they are the same. So to get my unit rate, I need to divide by my denominator. Denominator is 3, so I'm dividing the bottom and the top by 3. 36 divided by 3 is going to be 12. And 3 divided by 3 is going to be 1. So 12 flowers for every 1 vase. Finish highlighting that. All right. Now I'm going to look at my next rate. 60 flowers in 6 vases. Okay, so 60 flowers, that's going to go on top in 6 vases. So I'm going to get my unit rate, I need to divide by the denominator. My denominator is 6. Okay, so 60 divided by 6 is 10. And 6 divided by 6 is 1. Okay, so now we compare. I'm looking at this unit rate and this unit rate. Really quickly, I'm just going to finish highlighting this so I know that this rate goes with this rate over here. Okay, so 12 flowers for every 1 vase. That's the unit rate for this rate. And 10 flowers for every 1 vase. That's the unit rate for this rate right here. Do you think they are equivalent? I hope you are shaking your head and say no, they are not equivalent. So I am going to say no, not equivalent. Okay. Now we're going to learn how to use the next strategy. So I'm going to make a little squiggly line here, separating my work. This was one strategy where we had to get our rates into unit rates and compare the unit rates. Now we're going to use a strategy called arrow strategy. Well, that's what I'm going to call it, at least. You might hear other teachers calling it different things, but we're just going to call it the arrow strategy. Okay, so when I'm using the arrow strategy, first thing I need to do is set up my ratios side by side, and then I'm going to use arrows, and you're going to see what I'm going to do with the arrows. So let's read the first situation, the first problem. Are 3 free throws in 7 tries and 9 free throws in 14 tries equivalent? Okay, so let's set up our rates. So I have 3 free throws, FT stands for free throws, in 7 tries. T stands for tries. Okay, that's my first ratio. Let me highlight that. So 3 free throws and 7 tries, and then my next rate is going to be 9 free throws in 14 tries. So 9 free throws in 14 tries. Okay, so I have my different rates. Now I'm going to start comparing them. To compare them, I'm going to use the arrows that I was talking about. So the arrows, they look like that, but what I'm comparing on the arrows are what I have to multiply or possibly divide, but most likely it'll be multiply, what I have to multiply on each arrow so that I get the number across. Okay, so what I mean is 3 times something would give me 9, and 7 times something would give me 14. So the number that I'm multiplying over here, I would compare that to see if they are equivalent. If they are equivalent, that means I have equivalent ratios. Okay, let's do it real quick, and then maybe it'll make more sense. So let's say I didn't know what 3 times something is to get 9. Well, I can use my calculator, and I can go in the opposite direction, and I could do 9 divided by 3, and I would get my answer. Okay? Multiplication and division undo themselves. So if you have trouble finding what multiplies to something, you could always go the reverse direction and divide. So in your calculator, you can do 9 divided by 3, or if you know the answer, you can do 3 times blank equals 9. And I kind of just know it. So 3 times 3 equals 9, and 7 times 2 equals 14. So what I'm comparing in this situation is the 3 and the 2. Okay, I'm comparing these numbers right here that are right along the arrows, because those are the numbers that I'm multiplying to get the next rate. right? In order to get 9 from 3, I have to multiply by 3. In order to get 14 from 7, I have to multiply by 2. So these are the two numbers I'm comparing. You're going to ask yourself, are these numbers the same? 3 and a 2. No, they are not the same. So no, you do not have an equivalent ratio. No, not equivalent. Okay. Let's do this one down here. Let me just move the computer. Okay. So, I have my next situation are 12 minutes to drive 30 laps and 48 minutes to drive 120 laps equivalent. So let's see, let's break it down into the two different rates. So I have 12 minutes for 30 laps. That's my first rate. Okay, now I'm going to write my second rate. 48 minutes to drive 120 laps. Okay, so again, I'm going to make my arrows. Okay, and I'm going to think to myself, what do I multiply 12 by to get 48? Okay, somehow I had to get 48 from 12. If I'm unsure, I can use my calculator. In my calculator, I would go the reverse way and do 48 divided by 12. Okay, if you do 48 divided by 12 in your calculator, you will get 4. So then I can use that, and I can do 12 times 4 to get my answer. Okay, so if I did 12 times 4, I would get 48. And in my calculator, again, when I'm trying to figure out what do I multiply 30 by so that I get 120? Well, if you're unsure, you can go the reverse direction, do 120 divided by 30. If you do 120 in your calculator divided by 30, you'll get 4. So then if you multiply 30 times 4, you'll get 120. Okay? So again, what I am comparing is this number and this number. It's kind of hard to see now. Okay, so times 4 and times 4. I'm looking at this number and this number. Are they the same? If they are the same, then yes, I have equivalent ratios. So times 4 times 4. Yes, they are the same. I have equivalent ratios. Okay. And that's pretty much our strategies, okay? So just a quick review. Our two strategies were 1, use the arrow strategy, okay? On the arrows, you look at the numbers that you multiply by, okay? So I'm comparing these two numbers on here from my arrows. If they are the same, yes, these ratios are equivalent. If they are not the same, no, these ratios are not equivalent. Same thing up here, different strategy though. Over here we use a strategy called unit rate strategy. Okay, so what we did here was we had our rates. So this was one rate, this was another rate, and we had to find the unit rate. Okay, we found the unit rate in both. Then we compared the unit rates, And from the unit rates, we determined yes, it is a equivalent ratio, or no, they are not equivalent ratios. So that's all we're determining, whether they are equivalent ratios in Lesson 6. Let me know if you have any questions.